the assassination of the United Healthcare CEO is sort of there's the headline aspect of it and all the things that it might mean, but the kind of more concrete discourse on it seems to be emerging around like the American reaction to it, in which both the right and the left are sort of online, sort of saying similar things, and that mode of sort of caustic, comic, it's kind of like a revenge narrative that's made into the form of a joke.
Yeah, if I could summarize it in the language of online, the right and the left are basically saying "fuck around and find out." That's their reaction to it, right? Is that basically like, and even the New York Times. I mean, the top comments in the New York Times after their article about it, because I think that they did an article that was literally about like, wow, there was quite an intense anger at the healthcare system. It's like, no fucking shit, dude.
Yeah.
Like Michael Moore's Sicko, that movie came out in like 2006 or 7. And that movie, I think, was, he's a left guy, but either way, the sort of idea that the healthcare industry in America is predatory and rips people off, and that people's lives are disrupted in like horrific ways. I think that is on the right and left, but what the reaction is will be interesting, honestly.
Yeah, I find that, look, my criticism of the right position would be, rhetorically, people like Trump and those around him often preach the sanctity of Medicare and Medicaid and Social Security, like these welfare systems that were put in by a Democratic president and sort of traditionally associated with not only Democrats, but like the Bernie Sanders wing of the party. And so they have that rhetoric, and Trump ran on that rhetoric in 2016 and sort of says things along those lines in 2024. Even while there are other members of the entourage who are like, we're going to have to look real hard, when we cut these trillions of dollars from the budget and shrink the federal government, like these programs are back on the table. And that's the contradiction is, they might be upset about private healthcare in the United States, but a lot of the people on their team are looking to cut healthcare and to cut services from vulnerable people, impoverished people, elderly people, etc. So that's a major contradiction on their side. We can always point out the liberal contradictions as well, but that's a major one on their side. And I think that I don't think they quite know how to resolve it. And what's interesting too about this assassination to me is that it's, kind of claimed by the left and probably kind of rightfully associated with what is probably some sort of revenge taker, anarchist, anti-capitalist type person, but it could just as easily be from the right. And I think that that's going to be interesting to see how that plays out politically.
I agree. I mean, the guys that tried to take a shot at Donald Trump last summer were MAGA dudes.
Yeah. Right of MAGA.
Yeah, and it's weird because there is this sort of like exhilaration that people feel, like the sort of like John Brown thing, of like, oh, like to me, like it expresses a bit of like powerlessness, like we can't imagine how to actually change things, so it's like we'll just kill the bad guys.
Right.
But there's like, if you remember, like Christopher Dorner, the guy that like did a one-man war against the LAPD a few years ago. There were a lot of like left-wing people like cheering him on, like as he was like killing cops and like shit like that. And he was a cop himself. But if you looked at his manifesto, he was like, man, I really love Will Ferrell and Anchorman. And it was just he was like this kind of like just weird dude. And so like, I don't know, it's like kind of careful what you wish for with these assassin guys. Even Lee Harvey Oswald, right? You're kind of like, his politics are sort of all over the place. It doesn't seem like, in other words, like a coherent revolutionary politics, if that makes sense. I don't know. I think we're all reacting emotionally, and I'm including myself in that. But the healthcare thing is interesting because, the idea that, organic food and eating organic food was to save the planet, and the left-wing vision of that was like, we're eating organic food, we shop at Whole Foods to save the planet, has shifted to like, I eat organic food for myself, for like my own health. You know what I mean? And the kind of like, I don't know, the collapse of any kind of collective vision as attached to those particular cultural moves is interesting to me, because it's sort of like this "I got mine" attitude. And we've talked about this before. I have heard many COVID people, like COVID conservatives, basically say like, hey, if you don't want to die of COVID, maybe lose some fucking weight. Like that attitude is sort of like it's on you. In other words, there's not a collective solution to this. If you recall, in the early years, in the early years of COVID, like 2020, there were a lot of people on the left who were like, "This is a portal to like a new world. Like this is a portal to like our like unlocking our collective consciousness." And instead, it went the other way to like a portal to like a very hyper individual thing, where it's sort of like I've got my house. I'm ordering my Amazon. I'm going to my gym and getting my body. In other words, it goes from like, I don't know, organic food to save the world to like organic food and gyms for like the Ubermensch.